Right, so with this video, it's all about knowing what a reciprocal means, and this is why I set you dividing by fractions beforehand, because as you can see, kind of with these two later questions, you're just dividing by fractions. So reciprocal means, in some respects, the opposite to what you originally have. So if you had, let's say, a quarter, okay, the reciprocal of a quarter is 4/1, so you just flip it, okay. If you had 3, the reciprocal of 3 is 1/3, because 3 can be written as 3/1. 3 divided by 1, 3. The reciprocal of that is 1/3. So one thing that you have to be aware of when doing reciprocals and using reciprocals, if you multiply by a reciprocal, so multiply by the opposite, you always get 1. So what I mean by that is if you got 6 and you multiply it by 1/6, that means you get 1. So if you have 6 sixths, then you get 1. And the same would be as if you had 3 times 1/3, you'd get 1. Okay, multiplying by the reciprocal gives you 1. Okay, now if what we're doing here is just dividing by fractions again, so to divide by a fraction, you multiply by the reciprocal. Okay, so if you ever have to divide by a fraction, you flip that fraction and you times by it instead. So this is 1 times 9/5, which is the same as 1/1 times 9/5. If you remember from multiplying fractions, this is 1 times 9, 1 times 5. The answer is 9/5. So you times by 9/5, and that's your answer. And for this bottom one down here, again, you multiply by the reciprocal. So this is 1 times 4/5, which is equal to 1/4. So the answer is 4/5. Okay, it's as easy as that. Okay, so hopefully that makes it kind of a little bit more straightforward. If you want me to just go over, I can go over just dividing by fractions here. It's very, very similar to multiplying by fractions, and this should hopefully link to what you were doing yesterday. If, for example, you had a 1/5 divided by 2/3, okay, what that will become is 1/5 times by the reciprocal, so times by 3/2, and to then multiply fractions together, you do 1 times 3, 5 times 2. So 1 times 3 is 3, 5 times 2 is 10, and that's your answer. If you want to do another one, so let's say we had 4/5 times by 3/8, for example, or no, sorry, divided by 3/8, okay, we would get in that one, okay, that'd be 4/5 times 8/3, okay, you do 4 times 8, 32, 5 times 3, which is 15, and if you were to put that into a mixed number, how many 15s go into 32? That's 2. 2 left over, and that would be your answer. Okay, so hopefully I've kind of shed a bit of light on that. Just that bit there is the multiplication of fractions. With this bit here, flip it if you're dividing it, but all of this reciprocal stuff, you just flip the second one if you're ever dividing by a fraction. Hopefully that's made it a bit more sense to you, and you kind of understand it all a bit better. Obviously, pause it at any point if you want to follow any of these examples, and let me know. So, good luck.